Shall we stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Marceline, will you call the roll, please?
Joey Canseco.
Here.
There he is.
Lee Haggis. Here. Stephen Leffler.
Here.
Beautiful. Jeff Mangler. Here. Susie Myers. Here. Laura Nagy.
Here.
Pam Otto. Here. Megan Preventure. Here. Nick Smith.
Here.
Ed Bessner.
Here.
Thank you. And the students are at National Honor Society induction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to accept and place on file the minutes from our October 14th, 2025 Natural Resources meeting? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Oh, Jeff made the motion, Susie second.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Okay, new business. We have a presentation from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. Welcome, and you're up. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for the pie. My kind of meeting. I didn't have dinner. I was like, fantastic. So thank you for that. So yeah, I'll get going here. My name's Tristan Widlow. I'm the River and Streams Biologist for Northeastern Illinois for Illinois DNR Division of Fisheries. You can see Steve Pescatelli. I don't know, some folks may or may not know him. I know Jeff does. He is my now retired friend, mentor, colleague. He just retired in April after working for the DNR since the early 90s. So I'd be remiss to not put his name pretty much in every talk I give for probably the rest of my career, because he laid the groundwork foundation for all this stuff. So I can only take partial credit. So with that, just a little background or intro on what we're going to talk about here quick. So our DNR fish sampling programs, touch on that. Of course, talk about the fish communities of the Fox River Basin. And I want to touch on some of the rare, lesser-known species. I just think that's kind of neat to let folks know about stuff other than smallmouth bass. Factors affecting fish communities, how we use this data to determine stream quality ratings, and then look at variation of fish communities across the Fox River Basin, particularly going from upstream to downstream. There's quite a gradient and differences in the fish community. And then talk about some dam removal projects that the DNR, before my time, conducted, and look at some pre and post dam removal fish survey data, which is pretty telling, and obviously with what's going on in the Fox, and figure it'd be perfect opportunity. So again, I'm the River and Streams Biologist for Northeastern Illinois for DNR, which in our world we call Region 2. Again, just a little background information. So these are the main basins or rivers that I sample. So the Fox River, of course, the Des Plaines, which includes the DuPage River. We call it the Lake Michigan Basin. That's everything, North Branch, South Branch, the Calumet region, Chicago-San Jose Ship Canal, Kankakee River, Mazon River, and Aux Sable Creek. So those are like my major basins and rivers that I survey. So then getting into our fish sampling program. So this happens statewide. Obviously, I'm the biologist in Northeastern Illinois, but we have biologists throughout the state doing the same type of work. So the green dots, I don't know how well those are showing up, but those are our basin survey sites. Again, those rivers and basins that I mentioned on the previous slide. We do those in a 5-year rotation. So this year was the Kankakee and various tributaries. So I'll do that again in 2030. And 2026 is going to be that Lake Michigan Basin, which that one's always a treat. And then we work with the IEPA. They collect water quality data and look at macroinvertebrates and habitat information. And then we also have some sub-basin sites. Those are the brown or red, whatever color you want to say that is. Those are kind of more like hyper-local scale. Like, for example, Steve did a Auxable Creek. He did an intensive Auxable Creek survey with like 14 sites just to kind of get some baseline information, what was going on in Auxable Creek. Not something that's done, you know, on a part of a rotation, just kind of wanted to get an idea of the fishery. We also work with active watershed groups that have projects. You know, sometimes we have these watershed groups that need some data, you know, they're trying to get some funding, or they completed a project and they need some post-sampling conducted. So we'll help out watershed groups that way. And then also we do some sampling for permitting. So like, for example, any bridge going over a waterway or road construction near a waterway, we can look at data either that we already have, or we can go out and sample to collect more data to see how this construction may impact the fishery and, you know, what species are there. So here's what we use for sampling. Electric seine is up top there. I don't know if you can see it, but there's the electric seine. It stretches across the creek, and it's got droppers every so many feet. And it's plugged in. You can see a generator on that floating barge. Everything we know about electricity and water, throw that out the window. This just, it works. It's not throwing a lot of wattage out, so that's a big, you know, to make that clear. So if you're wearing waders, you're good. If you were to put your bare hand in there, it'll wake you up. But it's just enough, it's put enough watts in where it stuns the fish, they float up, and we can, you know, we scoop them up and put them in a live well with oxygen, and then we identify them, weigh them, measure them, and put them back. So we use those to kind of like medium-sized creeks, streams. We also do boat electrofishing, kind of the same principle. You have those two droppers. If you see, those rings, those two droppers out front, and that they have a bunch of an array of droppers around. And generator on the boat, of course, and we have a control box where we can control the amps and volts and how much electricity we're putting into the water. And then backpack electrofishing we use for like really small, like smaller than 10 feet wide. Again, same principle, just wearing it on your back, and it's battery powered. Oh, so what do we do with all this information? You know, we collect these fish. What are we doing with this? Stream health is a big thing we look at, so we're able to rate or grade a stream based on the characteristics of the fish community that's present, and I'm going to talk about that in more detail here in a minute. Fisheries management, of course, you know, I can make recommendations regarding sports fish, flathead catfish, you know, things to that effect. Watershed planning, project evaluation, already kind of touched on that, things like dam removal. You know, we have pre and post dam removal fish data, so we can look at, you know, how the dam removal works for the fishery. And then permit review, like I said, you know, bridges, road crossings, whatnot, are a good example of that. So just quick, Fox River watershed, very narrow watershed, 2,600 square miles, 1,700 square miles in Illinois. Flows from Waukesha, Wisconsin, all the way to Ottawa, where it flows into the Illinois River, and it's the third largest tributary in Illinois. And then here's some pictures just from so 2022 is our most recent Fox Basin. We'll do it again in 2027. What's that word? Oh, okay, it does. So American brook lamprey, I'm going to talk about in a second. Just some neat fish that not everybody knows about. American brook lamprey. We don't see a lot of them, but they're present in a couple spots. That's a fan-tailed darter. It's in the perch family. Banded darter right there. Orange throat darter. Actually, I got a great picture of one later. Really pretty fish. This is a state-threatened river red horse that was caught down near Sheridan, if anybody's familiar, in the Fox River. Smallmouth bass, of course, and then that's a suckermouth minnow. Can't give a fish talk without some fish pictures, so before we jump into all these bar graphs. So here's all our sites. The white pin drops, that's the main stem sites. And then all the blue pin drops, those are our tributary sites. And you see in 2022 we had, it's kind of covered up, we had 41 sites in total. So Steve came on sometime in the early 90s and so he kind of ramped things up, just adding more sites. We try to be consistent and hit the same sites every 5 years, you know, for historical data purposes, of course. We sometimes may add one or two, we may lose one or two, especially on some of the tributaries, the smaller creeks. We sometimes run into landowner permission issues. But other than that, we try to be consistent and hit all the same sites every 5 years. Very quick overview. So 41 sites total, like I said, 41,000 fish were collected. 79 species, that's an excellent number. So by comparison, the Des Plaines Basin Survey, that was 2023. We collected somewhere in the low 50s species-wise, so just to give you some idea. So it's the Fox River sportfish. We're all, of course, familiar with smallmouth bass. There's my buddy Steve. That's the flathead. That was around Fabian Parkway, which that way, right? Fabian Parkway. A muskie that came from the mouth of Big Rock Creek. So that's down my way around Plano. My office is actually right across the river, so that came from the Fox. And of course, a walleye. And we do another walleye picture. The DNR does stock walleye, approximately 50,000. It varies from year to year. 50,000 2-inch fingerlings are stocked, about 2-3 locations, the lower Fox, every year. And then they get stocked in the chain as well, the chain of lakes. So some of them will come out of the chain into the upper Fox. So these are just some lesser known, right? Everybody knows about the sport fish. So I just kind of like to throw these out here. Black-nosed dace. These are all small-bodied fish. None of these get bigger than 6-7 inches, especially large-scale stone roller, and the horny-head shub probably get about the biggest, maybe 6-7 inches. Black-nosed dace is in the minnow family, and in order for them to thrive and exist, they need really cold water, groundwater, and seeps and fens, so they're more of a tributary species. Rainbow darter, one of my favorites in the perch family. That's a breeding male. A lot of people don't know that these fish exist, so I just like to get the word out. And then slender mad tom is in the catfish family. And again, most of these are largely tributary fish. They'll come in and out of the main stem, but they're mostly in the creeks. Some sucker family species. Hyphen carp sucker, they get up to about 12, 13 inches in length, and they're intolerant to poor water quality. We actually don't really see them much upstream of Oswego. Shorthead red horse, shorthead red horse. Again, these are all sucker family. They get about 20 inches in length. They're pretty ubiquitous, like both in the main stem and tributaries. But again, we don't see a lot of them in the main stem as we get further upstream. I'll talk about some of that here in a minute. And one of my personal favorites, northern hogsucker. So nice, I had to put in 2 pictures. They got this cool little concave divot in their head. They're just a really neat fish. And they're very, very intolerant to poor water quality. So which I should point this out, so hyphen carp suckers, northern hogsuckers, when we find them, they're a good indicator species of good water quality and good habitat. Some T&E, so our threatened and endangered species, Ozark minnow, mottled sculpin, black chin shiner. Actually, I jotted down some notes that I didn't bring up here with me. Ozark minnow, they're only found in Salmonock Creek in DeKalb County. Nowhere else in the Fox Basin do we find the Ozark minnow. They showed up there, I think it was 2007. And then in 2022, we collected, I think it was 97 of them. But only in Salmonock Creek in DeKalb County. Mottled sculpin, a threatened species. They get about 5-6 inches in length. They too prefer really cold water, so they need those seeps, bends, groundwater to exist. Even though they're threatened, there's some spots in the Fox they absolutely love. I think we collected about 711 in just 2022 alone. So they do really well. Where they're found, where the habitat and the water's right, they do really well. And the black chin shiner, we've collected 5 of those total, going back to well before my time. And it's Nippersink Creek and North Branch Nippersink Creek is where they've been found, and that's it, 5. 2 more threatened and endangered, a greater red horse and river red horse. So these are larger bodied suckers. They get up to 30 inches in length approximately. The last time either one of these were collected, let's see, river red horse was 2015, right around the same spot as that muskie, which is the mouth of Big Rock Creek, again, Plano, out my way, in the Fox River. And same with this greater red horse. That's the last time that one was at. I think that was early 2000s. But I think greater red horse we've collected maybe 40 total, going back to all the surveys, and river red horse, I think it's right around 30. So obviously very rare. And last, threatened and endangered, is American brook lamprey, kind of neat. We only get these in 2 sites. In McHenry County, it's Boone and Silver Creek. We collected, I think it was 4 in 2022, all in Boone Creek. So they spend several, I think it's up to 7 years of their life in this larval amosete form, which is a few inches, and they burrow in the mud and sediment, and they filter feed. And then after, I think it's approximately 7 years, they emerge as adults. Kind of wild. Again, we only find them in those 2 spots, and we've collected 10 total, going back to, again, well before my time. Sorry about that. Okay, so now jumping into looking at some factors that affect stream ecosystems. So it's all the obvious stuff, right? Stream flow, water quality is a big one, habitat, of course, food source availability, and then connectivity. And I say connectivity, talking about the presence of dams. Presence of dams impact, you know, the ability of fish to move back and forth and in and out of tributaries and throughout the main stem, et cetera. So how do we measure stream condition? We look at this, what's called the Index of Biotic Integrity, or it's basically a stream report card. So for every site, so it's, well, get ahead of myself. It's based on these 10 metrics. Each metric runs from 0 to 6, and then obviously add it all together, you get a score of 0 to 60. 60 being like ideal, pristine site. 0 being, I've never seen a score lower than, I've seen some teens in some of the Lake Michigan basin sites, but yeah, so we calculate IBI for every site that we sample, and that gives us, again, a way to grade or rate the site based on the fish community that's present. So we have these 10 metrics too. I won't go through each one, but like number of native fish species, number of sunfish species, et cetera, proportion of specialist benthic invertebrates. So like your suckers that feed on macroinvertebrates on the bottom of the, you know, of the river. Those are your specialist benthic invertebrates, just to give you some idea. So then the IBI is used to determine this aquatic life use impairment. This is from EPA's 303D list, which is impaired waters list. This all came about as part of the Clean Water Act. And thing to focus on here is we're looking at this fish index of biotic integrity right there. And where we want to see all our sites, once we, you know, collect our fish and run our data, we'd love to see all our IBIs at or above 41, our index of biotic integrity, because that means no impairment for that site or that stretch of river or stream. So it means it's fully supporting aquatic life use. So that's ideally, so keep that in mind, so that's going to come up more throughout this talk. So we use fish as biological monitors. Why? Fish are everywhere, all habitat types, many trophic levels. They have large home ranges. They're sensitive to habitat changes, water quality, flow. So like when we have these historical sites, you know, that we sample every 5 years, if we see something, you know, that seems amiss, or, you know, we're missing certain sensitive species, it's like, did something happen to the habitat or the water quality? So, you know, we're able to track that. They're relatively easy to ID until you get down to some of these, like, you know, 2-3 inch fish, which we will preserve in a formalin solution and then look at those in the lab under a microscope. That's what I spend most of my winter doing, looking at little fish under a scope. And then live fish history information is available in all these species. And a big one, this is, I stole this from Steve. He's used this his whole career. Fish don't lie. It's either they're there or they're not. I mean, you can't make it up. You can't make up this fish data. You know, it is what it is. And you'll see it's going to make more sense, especially when we talk about some of the dam removal stuff. So here's our main stem sites. You saw this earlier, but that's with the tributaries removed. 15 from the state line all the way to this last one is downstream of Dayton Dam. So jumping into our IBI scores. So you have the IBI score on the vertical axis, and then all our sites moving from left to right, moving from upstream to downstream. And remember that 41, that line, that red line is that 41 where we ideally want to be, have all our sites at or above. And you can see there's this gradient as we move from upstream to downstream. We have all these lower scores, and then they start to uptick as, you know, we make our way downstream. So upstream of Algonquin, very low gradient, dammed, very lake-like. So as a result, you know, the habitat it's not a typical river habitat. It's more like a lake. I keep doing that. So as a result, we see these low IBI scores because there's less of the river species that we'd expect to see because of the habitat, because of the dams. And then you get to the mid-Fox, and when I say mid-Fox, that's below Algonquin. You kind of start to see an uptick once Heard's Island, that's Aurora. Surprisingly, there's some really good habitat there, so that site's actually upstream of Montgomery Dam, but it's out of the dam pool. It's above the dam pool. We do that intentionally because there is some really nice rocky, gravelly substrate that that high-quality fish like as you go, again, upstream of the dam pool there around Heard's Island. And then as you see, continue to move downstream, and we consistently can stay at or above that 41. You get lower Fox, less urbanized, and free-flowing until you get to the Dayton Dam. Here's the profile cross-section of the Fox River. Just kind of give you an idea, one, of location of all the dams, which Carpentersville, I should have put some white out on that, because obviously we know that one's gone. Just give you an idea, so we talked about Algonquin, how low gradient it is, and why, we have those low IBI scores. And then here's the averages so above Algonquin, we have 5 sites. Average IBI score for those 5 sites, this is just from 2022, was 31. As we move downriver, we have 6 sites in what we call the mid-Fox. Average IBI was 42. And then further downriver, so that's Yorkville on down, we have 5 sites, IBI of 48. So again, you see there's that gradient as you move from upstream to downstream. And it has to do with, one, the presence of dams, and then there's definitely an urban density gradient for sure as well. So these are the sites that have been surveyed that have been sampled every survey going back to '96. So there's 5 of them, again, moving from upstream to downstream. And you can see you have the average IBI scores up top. And remember, 0 to 60, we ideally want them at 41 or above. And so you see these average scores just, it goes up as you move downstream. There's some variability from year to year at each site. I mean, you're not going to get the same score year after year at a given site. But so that's to be expected. But again, you see that urban gradient as you move upstream to downstream, and overall higher scores in the lower Fox, which is less urban. So this is looking at the Fox. So the Fox here in the middle, mean IBI in 2022 is 41. Just want to compare it, give you an idea. So the Kankakee was the last time. Well, actually, we did it in 2025, but I haven't crunched any of those numbers yet. But mean IBI for all the Kankakee main stem sites was 48, which actually was down a few points from 2015. I think it was like 51. And then Des Plaines mean IBI in 2023 was 37, which is actually up 6 points. It was 31 because the Des Plaines, all the dams now above Brandon Road are out. So we've seen improvements in water quality, starting to see improvements in habitat. Now these fish can move around and do what fish want to do. So I'm very interested to see how the Des Plaines pans out when we go back in 2028. So onto the tributaries, we touch on those quick. So those are all our tributaries, and added those in blue pins there. I know we looked at all our graphs. This would just take a little respite. This is just a nice pristine tributary site with a banded darter making his way. But yeah, I always like to take a little breather before we jump back into more bar graphs. But it's hard to show this data without bar graphs. So again, you got your IBI on the vertical axis. So these are the tributaries. So going from upper watershed to lower watershed, you have the mean over all the years. The mean scores are in blue, and then the 2022 IBI is in orange. And then you kind of see that same kind of trend of IBI scores starting to uptick as we move down in the watershed where it's less urban. So again, some of the main stem gradient is evident, and we have higher IBI scores in the lower Fox watershed in general. So this is looking at the effects of urban land use on, when it says on fish, but really on water quality, and thus, the fish community, and thus the IBI scores. So this is looking at the average IBIs So this, each one of these is a survey. So this is the average for an entire survey. But you can see the percent urban land use here on the horizontal axis. The higher the urban land use, the lower the IBI. And it's a pretty clear-cut correlation. Less urban land use, higher IBI scores. And then here's kind of looking at these IBI ratings a little differently. Color-coded map. So the really low scores, you know, below 20 are in red, 21 to 30 are orange, and on. You could see all the orange and reds in your highly, you know, concentrated urban areas. And we don't start, you know, these pinks and whatever you want to call that, aqua. We don't start seeing those till you get out further west and further south where there's, you know, just less urban density and urban land use in the watershed. Always like using this one, just showing an urbanization in the Chicago region. We all know how that's gone over the years, right? You know, red showing urban development, and here, you know, by 2030. So the effects of urbanization. So we have less infiltration of water when it rains because of all the impervious surface, which leads to more runoff, which leads to flashy floods. With these flashy floods, you have habitat degradation because it scours out the banks, creates sedimentation downstream. And then also we have, because of less infiltration, you have more non-point source pollution, oils, toxins, what have you, all the things that flow into the river from a, you know, an urban area. And this all leads to habitat degradation and impacts our fish communities and our IBI scores. Other sources, stream degradation, channelized streams. When I do the Kankakee Basin survey, I've got a few sites that look exactly like this. It's an agricultural ditch. The whole point is, you know, get the water from point A to point B as quickly as humanly possible. And obviously a natural stream with riparian buffers. And here's all the wonderful things that riparian buffers do. You know, they feed the stream with detritus and leaf litter that, you know, feed the macroinvertebrates that the fish end up eating. Filter out these buffers. They filter out nutrients like phosphorus, for example, that, you know, keep them from entering the stream. Stabilize the banks, of course, moderate flow, you know, don't have these flashy flows if you have riparian buffers. Of course, a better habitat, and then shade and thermal refuge for fish and all aquatic organisms. Here's a map of just all the channelized streams in northeast Illinois in red, just to give you an idea, there's a lot of them. Other impacts, water quality, so nutrients. This is actually at the mouth of Big Rock Creek again by my office. You can see Big Rock Creek coming in, and it doesn't have the color from this algal bloom so this is the main stem of the Fox. So nutrients and dams, because dams basically are a sink for these nutrients and hold these nutrients, combine to create these algal concentrations, which can lead to dissolved oxygen problems. Next, here's a picture I just got from Friends of the Fox River, Art. I'm sure folks here know Art. I just got this from him the other day. This is a great example. So this is above Carpentersville. This is when Carpentersville Dam was still in place. You can see all the you know, the algal bloom and the color of the water is pretty straightforward. And then here's after. And at the same time here. This is September 25, that was September 24. Sedimentation, another issue. Not only does it cover up, you know, spawning beds and things like that, also sedimentation. You know, you have all this detritus and decaying matter, which also can cause dissolved oxygen issues as it's breaking down. And then low DO, of course, impacts our fish communities. And then, of course, dams. And there's just a whole host of, you know, impacts from dams. They impede spawning migrations, feeding migrations, winter migrations, summer feeding migrations. I mean, it goes on and on and on, keeping, you know, fish from doing what they would normally do and moving throughout a river and making these various migrations and movements that they can't do with these dams in place. So I took this is from Santucci and Gefford. I'm sure some folks here are familiar. That was a study done in the early 2000s. They looked above and below every dam on the Fox. Not only they looked at the fish communities, they looked at water quality, they looked at They also looked at the sediment, they looked at invertebrates, but for right now, I'm just gonna look at the fish. But they talk about these truncated and discontinued distributions. So you have all these species on the left. So it's showing, so here's all the dams. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So here's all the dams at the bottom. So I can see all these species that we don't find in the Fox because they can't get around the Dayton Dam. And then we see these discontinuous distributions. Again, because take the dams out, these fish would be moving freely and found throughout the Fox. But because of the dams, they're fragmented. So with our 2022 data, we actually tried to do something similar to what Santucci and Gefford did. So we broke the Fox up into 4 segments: upper, mid-lower, and lower, to kind of see, look at this discontinuous or, truncated distributions. And what we found, so here's all the species, 64, 65 that we collected in 2022. Only 25% were collected in all 4 segments, so 16 of the species. And then another 29% or 19 were only collected in 1 segment. And then 45% or 29 species had this discontinuous distribution that could be contributed to the dams. This is also taken from Santucci Gefford. They looked at, so this is, for example, a look at QHEI score, which is a habitat index score, rating the habitat. And the big take home here, and so they did this for all above and below all 15 dams, so these are averages then, for all 50, above and below all 15 dams. You see that QHEI is much higher below the dam where it's free flowing versus, in the dammed area. And they broke these areas into 2. So in the dam they had, upstream impounded, mid-segment impounded. So they looked at it, in 2 locations above and 2 locations below. But again, the big take home is that habitat is better downstream of these dams. And then they looked at it, here's another, again, big take home, looking at number of species, that's species richness, just the number of fish, abundance of all species, intolerant. So these are species intolerant to poor water quality. And then catchable size sport fish. Again, big take home, everything was higher. All these metrics are higher downstream where it's free flowing versus in the dam segments. So some there's dam projects throughout northeastern Illinois that have been completed in the last 30 some odd years. There's 38 projects in total. Somebody here every time I give one of these talks, somebody's like, oh wait, you're missing one. But I think I got them all. 38 in total. 13 are related to the Fox. That includes tributaries. 34 of which were straight up removals. 9 of those are in the Fox, which of course includes Carpentersville as the most recent. And then there's 4 fish passage projects we'll talk about here in a second. But over 500 miles of river and stream has been reconnected because of these removals. So mention that fish passage. So these 2 are on Big Rock Creek. I don't know how I get rid of this up here, but I don't know. How do I go back? Back? There we go. Okay. So fish passage. So this was a low head dam that they ramped with all this rock. So instead of taking the dam out, they ramped with all this rock, so the fish could get around it or get past it. And then Big Rock, this bypass, there's this little low head dam. Again, before my time, but my understanding was this was privately owned, and the owner wasn't too hip to having it taken out, but he agreed to this bypass. And then the Yorkville Dam has this fish ladder, and you can probably see from here that fish ladder has no water going over it, so it just was not engineered properly. And then this bypass channel just has all sorts of issues, catches debris and logs, and so it needs, big take home is that fish do use these. Actually, Steve and then Bob Rung before me, they did a study, particularly with the Yorkville Dam. They collected smallmouth bass from above Yorkville, tagged them, released them downstream, and then they were recapping them above. So showing that they do use these, but the unfortunate thing is that these bypasses they require maintenance, money, time. So ideally, you just want to take these dams out. So here's some before and afters. South Batavia Dam, before and after removal. North Avenue Dam, downtown Aurora. It was a real small dam, but nonetheless, at high water, it was no issue, but at low water, fish weren't getting over that or getting past that. Carpentersville, of course, most recent. And again, these I just got from Art today. So this is the dam pool while it's still in place, while the dam's still in place. And then in 2025, and I heard some grumbling about all these, sandbars, sand flats, what have you. But here's what it looks like September of this year. So that terrestrial veg is coming up, and it's reverting back to a more natural river, and not this fake impoundment. A couple other, Brewster Creek. So this is a tributary to the Fox. There was 2 dams on Brewster Creek that created created an impoundment, a lake. And 4 months after those dams were taken out, a new channel. So here and here, that's the old lake bed, and then a channel formed. So just a stream doing what a stream does when it's freed. And then here's what it looked like 4 years later. So here, get a better idea. So here's that impoundment, Brewster Creek. And then here are the dams, once they were taken out, so there's the lake bed, and that, natural channel formed shortly thereafter. Person Creek, it's another Fox tributary, dam removal before and after. And then Blackberry Creek, this is down Yorkville, kind of my neck of the woods. It's kind of a larger dam, sits, probably it was a couple 100 feet up, not far from the Fox River. There's just some construction photos and them taking it out, and then pretty close to what it looks like now. So now we're going to just jump into some data. So this is looking at 5 dams. 2 of them, I apologize, have to do the Des Plaines River, but the data is the data. Golf course, CD Ditch is a tributary of the Des Plaines. Hoffman Dam is on the Des Plaines River. YWCA is that's Brewster. Creek Bend, I don't know why we named them this way. Creek Bend is first, and then River Road is Blackberry Creek. But you can see, species richness before and after dam removal. So here's the number of species on this axis. So you can see obvious, improvements right away. And these are averages. And these stars indicate statistically significant differences. And I added this one because I made it back to that River Road. So above the former dam, we went back there and sampled as part of the Fox Basin in 22, and we added 2 more species. So, but you can see like River Road, great example, went from 7 or 8 species up to 25 once the dam came out. This is looking at catch per unit effort, or just the number of fish caught per hour of sampling. River Road, again, absolutely exploded. Went from under 100 fish per hour to almost 2,000. And then actually I took River Road out so you kind of have better resolution, so you kind of look at some of these others more closely. So this is that number of fish per hour. And then everything, went up across the board. Not as dramatic as, some more than others, but again, improvement across the board. And then here's our IBI scores. They all went up across the board. These 2, again, are statistically significant differences. And you can see River Road, we went back there in 2022, so IBI went from 30, and once the dam came out, up to 40, and then went back 2022, and it's up to 46. Some of these are more urban areas, so the IBI is going to take a little longer. It's on my to-do list to get back and sample these again. Some of the urban areas, as we discussed, the fish communities are more challenged just because of habitat and water quality and whatnot. But either way, you see the differences right away, and just in the IBI scores, because there's that 41 that we ideally would like to be at. All right, table of all those results, but just fix your eyes on this box here. This is the average for all of those removals. So before the dams came out, So species richness, the number of species, we're at 8 on average, up to 22 after the dams came out. We've got CPUE, so it's the number of fish per hour of sampling, went from 79 to 612 on average. And then our IBI scores went from 22 to 33. Again, no, not all at that 41, but it's progress. And that change in 11 points is actually a statistically meaningful difference. Back to the tributaries real quick, because now that we're talking about the dams, a couple of interests. So, we talk about you get to the lower Fox, and you see all these high IBI scores, right? Had these two lower ones, right around 40, 41, Salmonock Creek. These two, so that the 2022 score and the means are all right at or below that 41. These two sites sit above a huge impoundment, Lake Holiday in Sandwich. It's about a 300-acre lake. So, we talk about connectivity. There's a big connectivity issue because they have that impoundment downstream. But this site on Salmonock Creek, which has IBI scores in the 50s, is below Lake Holiday and has direct connection to not only to the Fox River, but then obviously it doesn't have an impoundment that's affecting the habitat, or a dam that's affecting the habitat. And then I just wanted to point out Blackberry Creek. So you see the averages in blue, see how they're both below 40, 41. And then in 2022, we see scores in the mid-40s. So that restoration is happening because the dam's been removed, habitat's improved, fish, indicator species are moving back in there and helping the IBI score. And just some fish that have moved back. So this is that Brewster Creek, just showing some river species that moved into that creek that were never there before, that couldn't move in and out of the Fox because of those dams. This is pretty neat, Blackberry Creek. That's Bob Rum. He was actually, I replaced Bob. He passed away some years ago. Very voracious, hardworking, intense biologist. But 2 weeks after that Blackberry Creek dam came out, shorthead red horse and quillback carp suckers moved in there for the first time and did a spawning run in over 170 years. They've never been collected or seen there before. Same with long-nosed gar, a river species that moved up into Blackberry Creek once the dam came out. And then here's those shorthead red horse I mentioned. Here's their spawning nests observed in Blackberry Creek above where the dam was. So some dam removal benefits: eliminate safety and liability issues. I know, particularly the Wilmington Dam on the Kankakee. I mean, they've had people die there. The Shorewood Dam, which that's out. Shorewood Dam on the DuPage, some people died there, unfortunately. So safety and liability issues that can be eliminated. Restores habitat. All these things we've talked about: water quality, connectivity, increases abundance of both game and non-game fish. Again, the maintenance costs. If you take the dam out, it's out, and you're not having to, no maintenance, unlike with the fish passages. And then an added bonus, canoe and kayak passage. Some misconceptions: the river does not dry up. Removal does not create ugly mud flats. We saw those sandbars, with Carpentersville, but shortly thereafter, all the terrestrial veg grew back up, and it looks beautiful. Sediment movement is controlled and does not impact downstream. It's a very controlled, slow process, the sediment moving downstream. And as we saw with the fish data, upstream recovery is rapid. And a huge misconception, I've heard this a lot, mosquitoes become a problem. If anything, the problem will become lessened because you don't have that stagnant water anymore. So with that, if you have any questions, obviously I'm happy to take them. And if you think of anything later, there's my email. And then a shameless plug, and this is Steve. My name is not on this book. He's got a Fishes of the Chicago region that just came out this year. Him and a couple other biologists worked on it. It's a fantastic book. I got it in the back if you want to see it. You can pick it up through, this isn't him telling me to do it. But yeah, University of Chicago Press put it out, and it's a really cool book. The pictures are amazing. So anybody that's a field guide individual, which I'm sure there are people in here that love their field guides, I highly recommend it. And that code, if we could show, I think they could get you some money off, which I can't show. I can't really see the code right now, but anyway. previous. So, with that, I'll take any questions anybody might have. Was I just that thorough? Cool. Thank you. And again, if you think anything. No.
You mentioned the dredging, or Lake Holiday now.
Yeah.
Do they dredge still? Because they were the past, if they do, does that affect everything that you presented today? In a good or bad way?
Well, I mean, the dredging, disturbing the sediment, I mean, they could be sending that downstream. I don't know, I'm not a lake biologist, so I don't know enough about Lake Holiday's operation, but also anymore to dredge, they would have to get every permit, you know, state, federal, and they'd have to follow all the proper, not do it during the spawning season. You know, there'd be all sorts of best management practices they'd have to follow, so.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do, but years ago they were.
But if they did it, yeah, they have to follow these, if we call them BMPs, you know, best management practices, so it doesn't affect downstream, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, with the non-game species, Tristan, most of those are in the tributaries, correct? Like the dark rivers and everything?
For the most part. They'll, you know, we'll get some out in, you know, in the main stem, but yeah, largely.
Could we look forward to that maybe someday? Like, say, up even like at Carpentersville, do you think there will be an increase in non-game species in the main channel after that dam came out?
So actually, I sampled above and below there, now that the dam's out. I haven't looked at it, I still have some preserved fish I have to look at under a scope. There's not much, and it'll take some time. So the terrestrial veg is there, but there's not much aquatic vegetation right now, like, you know, macrophytes or anything. So we didn't see, I was hoping to see more small-bodied species up there and not really seeing, again, this is anecdotal, because I haven't, you know, I haven't run the numbers or entered the data yet. But it'll get there. I think it's just going to take a little time, that restoration there. But no, yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
Very possible.
And then I did have a follow-up question too with the terrestrial vegetation. I'm assuming there's a lot of invasives in those seed banks, or?
I wouldn't doubt there's some Phragmites. Yeah. I would assume. And I was there. I will say I saw it, but I was.
You're a fish guy.
Yeah, and I was honed in. The river was kind of low and giving us fits, but I am amazed how quickly all that came back up, though. I mean, it was all sandbars, and so yeah. I think in due time. I mean, who knows? There may need to be some introduction of some macrophytes or some plantings or something like that. You know, that might not be a bad idea.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Sure.
In your opinion, does removing a dam affect the water depth of the river?
I mean, you don't have that artificial impoundment anymore. Yeah, so you know, a lot of these dams are put kind of at a spot where there's gradient. So if anything, you kind of might end up with more of like a riffle, you know, riffle run situation where it's rocky and gravelly, and so yeah, it gets rid of that artificial impoundment. So yeah, water level will go down some, but yeah, it's not gonna. Again, people think it's gonna dry up. It's not gonna dry up. But
would it affect certain fish species that prefer certain depths of water?
It could impact, you know, some of those like flathead catfish holes, as you know, people say. You know, I guess that there's that potential. Though we had, and again, anecdotal, because I crunched the numbers, but we had a couple of big flatheads above the former Carpentersville Dam. So, I mean, some of those holes are still there. You know, they don't just disappear. Some of those holes might not be as deep as they were, but...
So if devil's advocate,
yeah,
you're the fish guy, what I think would be helpful in letting people know is, you know, fish is great. Species, all of this is great, but they also play a very important role to getting eaten. And so my question would be, if in terms of dam removals, eagles, raccoons, certain things that are actually, you know, they depend on fish for their livelihoods, what exactly does that do if those fish and the depth and whatnot is affected? Well, I feel like there's a little bit of a butterfly effect here that, yes, more fish is great, or, you know, vast and whatnot. And I don't mean to sound contrary. I think that there's a little bit of a rabbit hole that, okay, great, fish is now here and this and whatnot, but what also is from a natural resource, you know, scope, does that also affect outside of the river, next to the river, you know, and whatnot, as far as wildlife, birds, et cetera?
Well, I mean, the eagles, so, you know, I've heard that argument or what have you. So, I mean, yeah, they'll hang out, right? They're looking for open water in the winter. So they'll hang out in the tailwaters of these dams, but they'll find open water. They just might not be concentrated below the tailwater of a certain dam. They'll find open water. They're going to find food. I mean, the fish, especially with the dams out. I mean, now the fish are moving around. I mean, they'll find food. And as far as what we saw from that Santucci-Gefford, they showed that catchable size. That was one of their metrics. Catchable size. Well, this wasn't a pre and post dam, but they showed that catchable size sport fish were actually more plentiful in the free-flowing sections versus the dam sections. Because some of these dam sections, I mean, they might have more water. Some of them are so silted in, and the water quality is so poor, dissolved oxygen is low, that you're only seeing you're seeing common carp, you're seeing green sunfish, you're seeing, you know, kind of your less desirable. You're not, like in some of these dam pools that are filled in with silt, you're not seeing smallmouth bass. You're not seeing, because they don't want to hang out in this low dissolved oxygen area. So
a lot of the feedback that I've gotten from people, you know, in St. Charles with this dam removal is that point. And so if you are going around trying to educate people specifically about fish, I would, devil's advocate, suggest that you talk about, okay, what is the butterfly effect of what we're actually doing here?
Sure.
Not just there's more fish. How important are they to the ecosystem? Minnows. Nobody here cares about minnows except what eats minnows, and then what eats that, etc. Right. So I just feel like we're all laymen for the most part.
Sure. Well, that's why I wanted, like, that slide of, like, you know, these lesser-known species, let people know, like, there's more than flatheads and smallmouth bass, and without, you know, and obviously without those minnows moving in, or, you know, small-bodied fish, you know, providing food for the bigger fish, I mean, it's...
hit people over the head with a hammer, I would say.
Sure. Can do. Go ahead, Steve.
So I've got questions about the modifications. If we were to do a modification to the St. Charles Dam, similar to what has been done in Yorkville, what would that do for the fish north and south of the dam?
They'll use it. Like I said, they again, prior to me, yeah, they did that tagging smallmouth bass. You know, they took them from above the dam, tagged them, moved them downstream, and they found that they moved back up. So I mean, yeah, they'll use it as long as, so, you know, maybe don't make some of the same engineering blunders, dare I say, that they did at Yorkville.
Okay. And also, we have a issue downtown with the mayflies. They're pretty thick at certain times of the year. Will this affect any of that? If we did a
mayfly emergencies, I
mean, how does the impoundment affect the mayflies? Do you have any idea on that?
No, I guess honestly, I don't have I probably don't have a solid answer on mayfly emergence. I'm not familiar with it, but I don't know how that, I don't know how a dam would or wouldn't affect that, so,
Okay, thank you.
sure. Yeah, sorry.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we did not schedule, we have no old business. Committee reports, do we have anything from education and outreach?
Just, Marceline sent you guys an email the other day from Conservation Foundation, and so if you read that and do what you want to with it. Also, we have the books that will be delivered to the, grade schools after Christmas.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Oh, and the den, think about next year when you want to write for the den, because I'll have a pass out next month.
So everybody, so don't fight over the sign-ups for articles for the den.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything from engagement? Okay, seeing none. Anything from advisory? Okay, seeing none. Ad hoc. Anything new on the dam? I know that Steve, last month had thought that there would be a letter sent to the IDNR, that we would be interested in the non-binding letter to proceed with, information finding. But then I've heard that city council did not follow through with that and tabled that. Do you have any update on that? What's happening with that?
Do you remember, Bob, they presented, they wanted to put together a letter with the city stating that at the time, I guess, we are in support of moving forward to get the information. If we didn't do that, it was presented to us that that would be an answer of us saying we don't want the dam, or we don't want to, keep the dam, or we don't want to find a way that we should keep the dam. Does that sound right, Bob? For you?
Yeah, I believe the date is we have to respond to them by the end of January. So there's some things in that letter, the way it was worded, that the city administrator and other people were going to look at to make sure we worded it correctly. The stance, I believe, that if we, as a council, agreed, at least in our discussion, was we'd like to get the environmental information from them without making a commitment of whether we're going to keep the dam or not keep the dam. So the wording was kind of iffy for it.
Okay.
Would definitely like to have the environmental information study that they're currently working on. That's really what the letter was asking, but the way it was worded was really strange, like we were.
Okay, yeah, because it was my understanding, it was non-binding, that
Correct.
we just wanted to, and that would be, in my mind, key, is that it would be non-binding, but that the information, otherwise it'd be difficult for city council to make a decision without the information, since the information that they were talking about providing was information that the task force was looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted
It's in
to.
the works, but we have a timeline. I believe the date was January 31st of next year, so we have a little bit of time in order to get that letter into the Illinois DNR's hands in order to tell them where our stance is.
Okay.
As far as getting that data. Yep.
So the key is that it be non-binding, that we haven't decided on the dam, but we want the information.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That makes things good. Okay. Right. Jeff, you,
Well, I just wanted to add that I had a conversation with Wes Couture of the Illinois DNR. He's kind of been the point person on this. He's the head of that Office of Water Resources. And he indicated to me he's never been invited to speak in St. Charles or to answer questions, and he would be happy to come here.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know that. Anybody else have anything else regarding, yes?
Steve has his hand raised on the screen.
Go ahead, Steve. There's probably a bit of a lag considering he's in Europe somewhere.
You're still on mute, Steve.
I was hoping to go to the Fox River Study Group to listen to Wes Couture, and I would very much like to have him join us for one of our meetings. Also, Bob and Ed, I've been listening to the recorded minutes or the recordings for city council meetings in Batavia and Elgin. Both have had similar discussions recently. And one of them, I don't remember which, decided to not use the IDNR form letter, but kind of take it and modify it. And you might want to take a look at that and see if you wanted to make some modifications to their form letter.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, do I have a motion to accept and place on file the Public Services Tree Activity Reports for October of 2025? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? I'm thinking not. Okay, public comment. We do technically have, I guess we consider public. Thank you for attending, and you're welcome anytime. So do you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I appreciate the special invitation to hear what Tristan had to say tonight, which was very informative. So I appreciate you reaching out to all of us to make us aware that we're always invited, but this one had a particular interest, so.
Which is why I extended that invitation. So is this also going to be available to be viewed at a later time? Great, okay. Because I know Heather reached out and said that she had a previous commitment so that she, we can let her know that it will be available for her to watch at a later time. So, okay, great, thank you. So do we have any additional comments from commissioners? Yes, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. It's that time of year already. I guess I'll go to any comments from city staff. I think Marceline has something.
I have the pumpkin stats.
Pumpkin stats.
Okay, 1,525 pumpkins were collected. 250 vehicles, one tractor, from St. Charles, Geneva, Batavia, South Elgin, West Chicago, and Campton Hills.
Okay. And several pumpkins consumed.
Yeah.
And please eat more pie. I don't want to take those home. I think only one is gone. I prefer that they both be gone. And I believe there is a sign up in the back for the holiday light collection. We've got that coming up. So please sign up, and I will as well. We can talk if there's gaps. I should be able to fill those gaps for the most part, but please, take some spots. We'll have that starting up here soon.
I did hear from the Park District that they would like an additional bin that they could put at Hickory Knoll, but they will handle the I said that was always an issue because it was so far out, but they'll have staff bring the bins
Oh, okay,
collection point at Public.
okay.
So
So
hopefully,
they could use 2 bins so that they can rotate, or are they gonna drop off and return?
actually 2 might be a good idea.
Yeah.
And I could handle getting them out there.
Do
and
we
then-
have spare bins that can be,
We have lots of them.
lots of bins?
Yeah.
Okay,
Good. Okay. There,
Okay.
the Park District Green Team's meeting tomorrow, so I said I would have an update.
Okay.
Tonight, so I'll let them know
and I
that.
think there are bins downstairs for Megan to pick up,
Yeah,
is
we've
that right?
got 2, to go to Wasco Nursery tonight, and then, city staff can distribute some at the Park District site,
Okay,
obviously at City Hall and Public Works, so.
okay.
Yeah, the Monday of the week of Thanksgiving.
So the Monday before Thanksgiving.
24th, yeah.
Okay, so that way when people are putting up in their house or getting decorating, they find they don't work, then they've got a place to take them. Cool. Okay, anything, does anybody have anything else?
Best pumpkin pie I've ever had.
Thank you. Have more, because there were 2 more in the oven, you know, like I say, what I didn't realize or had forgotten, I'll put it that way, is when using fresh pumpkin, there's a lot more moisture. And so it took substantially longer than what it said by about double the amount of time in the oven. So when I left, there was 2 more that my mother-in-law was supposed to be watching over. So yeah, so I have quite a bit at home waiting for me, and I love pumpkin pie, but that might get a little bit old. So, so please, you know, have a few before you take off, please. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Great, thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. That was very, very, yeah, very informative. Thank you so much.